Welcome back to the Automation Podcast. My name is Shawn, and this week on the show, I meet up with Jackie Stokes from Siemens to learn how you can use Siemens VFDs on native Allen-Bradley networks with Allen-Bradley PLCs.
Jackie, thank you for coming back on the Automation Podcast. I'm excited to go over some of these ways that you can integrate Siemens VFDs with Allen-Bradley systems. I got a sneak peek at this during your virtual event earlier in the year, and I was just so impressed that you have so many options for other vendors. In this case, we'll be talking about Allen-Bradley. So, but before we get into your presentation, just in case somebody did not see your previous episode where you were on with the other folks talking about motion and drives, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for the quick intro. So my name's Jackie Stokes, and I'm with Siemens. I'm the marketing programs manager in the motion control group, and I've been with Siemens for exactly a year now today. And before I moved to Siemens, I worked for Rockwell Automation for a little over a decade in a few sales and marketing roles. So today I'm going to talk about how to integrate Synamics drives, which are Siemens drives, that's just the name of our family of drives, into automation or Rockwell Automation control systems. But before we get onto that topic, I just wanted to quickly introduce the Synamics low voltage drive portfolio to give our listeners some context. So about a month ago, I was on this podcast with my colleagues. They're two of our drive product managers. So that would be Craig Nelson and Raphael Larcher. And we discussed the Siemens drive family and talked about the many features and benefits of our products. So if you missed that podcast, please go back and listen to it. I'm going to assume you know a little bit about Synamics drives, and then we'll get into how to integrate them. But what occurred to me after that podcast was there was a little confusion between Siemens drives and Siemens motion. And I think it's just like a nomenclature thing. So when I talk about drives, I'm actually talking about VFDs, so our general purpose drives, as well as our high performance drives and our servo drives. So this is just a quick overview of our Synamics low voltage drive portfolio. And again, this involves both drives as well as motion drives, or motion control, I should say. And so we have standard performance drives. These start from our really basic drives, such as the V20, all the way to our really high-end performance drives and servo drives. So I'll be talking a lot today about our Synamics G drives. So that's general purpose. And our flagship drive in this category is our G120 drive, as well as our servo drive, which is the Synamics S120, also in our high performance category. We have drives all over the place, though, from distributed or on machine to industry specific to also DC drives. But just wanted to give our listeners a little bit of context about all the Synamics drives that we have.
I appreciate that, because when I hear drives, having that Allen-Bradley background, I always thought VFDs. And in the Siemens worlds, we're talking VFDs, but also servo drives. So it's kind of like two categories in one. So I appreciate you clarifying that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And, I did work for Rockwell Automation, and the drives business unit is separate from their motion business unit. And that's what they're called, like drives and motion. So that'd be like PowerFlex and Kinetics. Whereas at Siemens, the Synamics or Siemens motion control is really all of our drive products, in addition to, our motors and geared motors, our CNC control. So it's kind of a more extensive portfolio, I'd say. So what we're here to talk about today is networking and communication. So, the big standards in industrial Ethernet, as we probably all know, are Profinet as well as Ethernet IP. And so in North America, we are really standardized on Ethernet IP. Of course, Profinet is a big standard as well, and Siemens is standardized on Profinet. But sometimes, you have to work with what you have. So you might have a mix of both Ethernet IP or Profinet. And the benefit of our drives is that you can switch between Ethernet IP and Profinet with just one parameter change. So on this slide, I have a bunch of different Siemens products, including our HMI, our our PLC, our IO, as well as our drives, and they're connected on both Profinet as well as Ethernet IP. One other benefit of our Siemens drives, our Synamics drives, is that dual port Ethernet is standard on our G120 drive.
That's excellent. So at some point in the history of the Siemens drives, you guys said we're going to support both of these premier networks. One's most popular in America, one's most popular in Europe, and in other places, there's a battle going on for dominance. But I think that's really interesting to have it. So you don't need any for industrial Ethernet. If you're using one of these two very popular networks, it's just a parameter change. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's oh gosh, I'm blanking on the parameter number right now. I think it's 2030, but you can change from Profinet to Ethernet IP with just one parameter change. So you don't need any extra hardware or option cards to be able to do that. And what's really nice is, sometimes you are in a facility where you have a mix of both networks, or maybe you're an OEM and you're trying to supply machines to both Europe and North America. And so you want to standardize on one drive, but you also need to connect on both networks and maybe connect with both PLCs, a Synamics PLC or a Simatic PLC, as well as a Logix PLC.
Yeah, and that's important. I know having learned TIA Portal myself over the last couple of years, because I'm teaching a course on it now, there's a learning curve there. But when it comes to a VFD, you have some parameters you set up, you put it in, and it really, you don't need to be a TIA Portal expert or a Studio 5000 expert to use a VFD, right? So setting the parameters, you have a list of things you got to set. And so you can standardize on one VFD and use it with multiple different vendors' PLCs, just like you can do the same with a photo eye, maybe not to the same extent. So I think this makes sense. It shows the, especially on the OEM side, hey, we can have one spare. It can really work with all the major PLCs out there. I think most of the major PLCs out there today use Ethernet IP and Profinet. Most of them, not all, but most.
Yeah, so so that's just a quick overview of, how we can connect on industrial Ethernet networks like Profinet and Ethernet IP. And I know we're here to talk about Ethernet IP and specifically how we can connect with Logix PLCs on Ethernet IP. So again, this is a little bit of a weird topic for me because of course we have Siemens PLCs, but we also appreciate that Logix is big in North America, and sometimes you need to connect to this PLC instead of a Simatic PLC. So I will just quickly introduce the three elements that we've developed in order to make this integration easy. So we have a Synamics G120, but it could be a G drive or it could be an S drive. Again, the G is for general purpose, and then the S is for system or, motion. And so right now we have a G120 drive connected to a Logix PLC over Ethernet IP, as well as a panel view HMI with the FactoryTalk View ME software. And then the three elements we've developed to make this integration easy are: one, electronic data sheets, two, add-on instructions, and then three is faceplates to connect to the HMI. So I'll go into these in a little bit more detail. For those of you might know what electronic data sheets are, EDS files, but essentially what this allows you to do is when you go to add a new module, like an Ethernet module, onto the Studio 5000 network, you're normally able to, natively within Studio 5000 add a PowerFlex drive or, any other Rockwell Automation product, as well as Rockwell Automation partner products. However, you won't normally natively see a Synamics drive as part of that menu. So what the EDS file allows you to do is you import EDS files for Synamics drives, and then you're able to select them in the menu when you go to add a new module. And what this allows you to do is, easily select our product. It pre-configures communication between the PLC and the drive. And then we've developed these EDS files so that you don't need to manage hardware and firmware. So we disabled keying for the drive. And what this allows you to do is, like, say you have an issue where you need to replace a drive. So a drive fails on the network and you need to replace the drive. And you want to do this quickly, of course, right? You want to reduce downtime, you want to get back up and running. But normally what you might have to do is make sure that replacement drive has the same firmware revision as the drive that just failed. And so this can involve, one, knowing what firmware you have, and then two, flashing that firmware to the correct revision. But with this EDS file, if a Synamics drive were to fail, you could just replace it with another Synamics drive and you don't have to worry about that firmware. So it makes it, I don't know if maybe some of our listeners appreciate that nuance, but if you have experience that you can understand like what a headache that might be to have to flash firmware when you have to replace another drive. So that's the electronic data sheet, the EDS file. So again, you can select a new Synamics drive in the project very easily. The next tool that we have is an add-on instruction. So we have several add-on instructions depending on what kind of telegram that you might be using. So, speed control or other ones. And essentially an AOI, for those unfamiliar, are just a logic for a task that is encapsulated into a block to be used in the Studio 5000 program. They reduce engineering time. This is something, you just import the AOI and you're able to use it right away. The Siemens drives will then have descriptive tag names like start, stop, and jog, and then the AOI is connected to the HMI faceplate. So this is, again, really easy, simple to use. It's really just linking input and output data. And if you're curious about what the AOI is actually doing, it's not a locked AOI. So you can go in and take a look at the code if you want to see what it's actually doing. But again, this is just making it really easy to add a drive to the project and then to get it up and running as quickly as possible.
Now, could you explain, I've not heard this word before used in this way with VFDs. Can you explain to our audience, so we all know what an AOI is? Well, a lot of times we'll use them. Third parties like to use them. They save us as the engineer or programmer a lot of time and having to create code, for every third-party product we go to use. And so we're familiar with those, and we're familiar with using those with third parties, if we're using Allen-Bradley. But the word telegram, that sounds like it's specific to your VFDs. Could you explain in what context you're using that word?
Yes. So hopefully I do a good enough job explaining this. So a telegram is kind of a Profinet word, and that's what I had to learn when I joined Siemens. But essentially, it's just a term for the cyclic communication between a drive and a PLC. So it's the control word and it's the status word, and there are different telegrams for different status and control words. So one would be like positioner or like speed control. And then, there are more complicated telegrams. And then there's also like a customizable telegram, a free telegram. So you can, it's a standard within Profinet between drives and PLC. And that's why, we're kind of mentioning this telegram right here, telegram 352. But yeah, I mean, that might be a whole nother podcast to talk about telegrams and Profinet, but that's just what we're talking about here. So you can see, the actual speed, current, torque, and then of course we have the fault codes within that AOI. But in a nutshell, that's kind of what a telegram is.
So depending on what information you need out of the VFD, you would use a different AOI. So you may just have a simple where you need the command and status bits and maybe speed in and out, and that would be one AOI with a telegram XYZ. And then if you needed more stuff, more like, and this on the screen, we see one that shows actual speed, current, torque, warning code, fault codes, reference speed. So there's different AOIs depending on what you need from the VFD. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, good.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question.
No, that makes it makes sense. It does make sense.
So now I'll talk about, again, so this is a third element with connecting Synamics to, like a Logix architecture. So this would be the last element. It's connecting with a panel view HMI. So you may or may not be using, Allen-Bradley HMIs, but if you were, we do have a pre-built HMI screen that talks directly to that add-on instruction and drive. And so this is a really easy way to, get all that drive information. You can view the status, the faults. You can switch between like auto and manual mode, start, stop, jog, all the typical drive control you can do right within this HMI screen. So again, just something pre-built out of the box for you to use if you would like to, get a jump start on that HMI development.
Yeah,
And
and I
then,
just
oh,
go ahead. I'm just going to clarify for the audience. This is a Panel View Plus. You had said View ME earlier, but just in case anybody didn't catch this, of course the people watching can see it. But if you're listening, this is specifically a Panel View Plus, and it looks the faceplate looks very similar to the basic Rockwell ones. It would be a great. I mean, you could use this in production, no problem. And quite honestly, most screens in the field look like this. But it would be a great place too as a starting point. So you don't have to, map everything yourself. You can use this and then add your own color schemes, your own, resize the buttons if you want, make it bigger, make it smaller. But I just wanted to jump in there and say for those who are not watching, that specifically this is the Panel View Plus.
yes, thank you for that clarification. So again, that kind of wraps it up for, connecting to Logix controllers on Ethernet IP. We have several resources available right now on our website. So this is the Siemens Online Support website. We have this for Synamics G drives as well as our S drives, and its application manuals. We have the add-on instructions available, the EDS files, the faceplates, and then we've also developed labs for the PLC and HMI that walk you through step by step how to do this. Our distributors have access to host events with equipment to get you in a hands-on learning environment so you can see for yourself. So if you're curious and you want to, maybe you don't have a Synamics drive at your facility or in front of you, and you want to see how it connects to a Logix PLC, just reach out to your distributor, your local Siemens account manager or drive and motion consultant, and we can provide you with that kind of, hands-on learning experience so you can see for yourself.
Yeah, and I just want to say you guys have a great website and you have a great knowledge base, or the online support website is awesome. We featured that several times in the show in the past. I will say this though, don't wait until the day you want to use it to sign up, because you do have to create a free account. And there's a short delay there for that account to be approved. So if you're trying to do it within a 20-minute period, like most of us in the Northeast are crazy, I don't think I can sign up and do everything right now. You make sure you create your account ahead of time. They will send you an email to verify you are you. And so there's a small process there. So just keep that in mind. Don't think you're going to get sign up and start downloading this stuff within 5 minutes, because it does have to go through a short approval process, to make sure you are a valid user and not somebody else.
Yes, good point. So again, it's free, but you will have to set up an account to get access to this material.
Yeah.
So that's connecting on Ethernet IP with Logix PLCs. Next, we'll talk about, so like, what if you have old PLCs? What if you don't have Logix? What if you have an old PLC 5, or maybe you have a SLC 500 controller in your facility? What do you do, if you want to connect drives to these PLCs on legacy networks like Remote IO or DeviceNet? So, how do you connect? So we have solutions for both. We have solutions for Allen-Bradley Remote IO, also known as Bluehost or Rio. And we can connect to PLC 5 and SLC 500 without touching the PLC code. So it's very cool. It's a very powerful message, and I'm going to explain how exactly we do that. So for our listeners, I'm looking at a pretty picture of different devices on AB Remote IO or Bluehost or Rio, as it's called. So we have an AB PLC 5. We have an old AB drive. So maybe it's like a 1336 on remote IO. And what happens, or what could happen, is the drive fails or we need to replace that old AB drive. And so what we can do is use a soft PLC gateway, connect that to the PLC, and then connect the other side of that to the Synamics G120 drive over Ethernet IP, and download a configuration file, and you're off and running. So in this solution, we've spent a lot of time and resources to co-develop a gateway with soft PLC that allows us to replace certain obsolete AB drives with new Synamics drives on remote IO. So, kind of the magic here is this gateway, but it's not, I guess what I want to say is it's not just any gateway. It's one that we've designed with soft PLC for specific AB drives, replacing them with Synamics, and it's on this remote IO network. So because we've spent some time and development hours working on producing this product, the end result is a really elegant migration solution. So essentially all you have to do is connect the hardware. So you'll connect the old remote IO adapter, an Ethernet cable from the Synamics drive to the soft PLC gateway. You'll configure the soft PLC gateway via a web server. You'll commission or do just a basic startup on the Synamics drive. And then this is a really light configuration file that you'll download to the Synamics drive. So, we're talking about this gateway, and maybe people are curious, maybe people have had like bad experiences with gateways, or it's not as simple as I'm making it out to be. But again, it was specifically designed for Siemens drives and replacing these old AB drives. And so when I say configure it, it's just a web page really that you go to once you have it hooked up, and you answer a few questions. So you're, looking at pull down menus on this website, and it's just asking for the AB drive model. So all you have to do is select the AB drive model that you're wanting to replace. There's a rack address, rack size, and then you're just going to select the command words and status words. So this gateway is available now. So it has a Siemens part number. It's a Siemens stocked item. And then again, it's just configurable via this web interface. So, oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in just for the audio audience. So under the AB settings in this gateway, it has your remote IO baud rate, determining resistor on off, the rack address. In this case, you would put in rack 1, 2, 3, or 4, whatever it is, and it looks like you can actually specify the down to the quarter rack, which would be important because these drives always can start at quarter rack boundaries. You get the drive model number, and the example they're showing 1395, but the pictures we were seeing like 1336 variants, and then you have what is what's very common for those of us using these older drives. You have all the data links, so you're seeing commands, right, that you send out to the drive, and status as you get back from the drive. And you can make several selections here, and they have one of them is your block transfer, write and read control words, but you could have command bit speed, reference feedback, and all that. So if you're not seeing the picture, it looks like all the bases are covered. I've used a ton of 36s on remote IO, and I'm not seeing anything that's missing here. The only thing, if you're not familiar with remote IO, then you probably have this probably isn't for you, or using the old drive on remote IO is probably not for you because remote IO is kind of complicated. But I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But like you said, it's all pretty easy to configure, easy to select, and then this is all the configuration you need to do. You don't need to go into the PLC code or deal with remote IO any more than what you need to do on this website. So I just want to summarize again exactly what drives you can replace. So this would be the 1305. These are AB drives. 1305, 1336, Force Impact Plus 2, 1395 and 1397 DC drives. So again, Siemens has a DC product, so we can replace those AB DC drives. And then a little bit newer than the 1336, but the PowerFlex 70, 70 EC, PowerFlex 700, and PowerFlex VC. And again, we have documentation for all this. So if you would like to learn more, please reach out to your local Siemens account manager, distributor, drives and motion consultant. So that summarizes the remote I/O resources. And then we have one more solution, and this is for DeviceNet. So DeviceNet is a bit newer than remote I/O, but still a network that is older, but still out there. So in this scenario, we have an AB Slick 500, maybe circa 90s. And then we have an older AB drive. So this could be like a Bulletin 160, 1305, maybe a PowerFlex 447, 700. It's on the DeviceNet network. And then, again, similar situation. You have a drive failure or you need to replace this drive. And we have another gateway device. So this time it is a Hillshire gateway device, and it is connected to the DeviceNet network, but also connected via Ethernet IP to the Synamics G120 drive. And in this configuration, we need a Synamics configuration file. This is what does a lot of the drive translations from the older AB drive to the newer Synamics drive, and does that magic for you. So you do not need to do any of that work on your own. So no changes to the PLC code. I will kind of step through the process to replace the drive. So you would just perform a basic drive startup. That would be on the new Synamics drive. You would load the CLI library. Again, I'm throwing around this word CLI. It's essentially a configuration file for the Synamics drive, and it is it stands for command line interface, and it's just a basic programming that you can do in actually a text file, like in a notepad file, and then you just save it as a .cli file. But essentially what it allows you to do is program different drive parameters for Synamics, and then you just download it to the operator interface, and then you can take that to the drive, and that's how you would program the Synamics drive very easily. And again, these CLI files, these configuration files, have been created for you. So you don't have to do anything. You just would load the appropriate CLI file for the drive that you're going to replace. You'll connect the gateway to the drive and the DeviceNet network, set the node address. You'll disable keying in RS networks for DeviceNet for the replacement drive, and then you'll configure the Hillshire device. Now, I have a lot of things listed on this slide for what you don't need to do. For our listeners, I will read it, but it's a long list of DeviceNet configuration. So as reconfiguring the RS network software, you do not have to do, or downloading the EDS files, deleting and adding the drive, remapping the drive in the scan list, running the automatic tag generator, reconfiguring the PLC program. There are a lot of things that you do not have to do if you use this gateway and if you use our CLI files for the Synamics drive to do the translation for you. So this gateway is for, again, specific AB drive replacement. So it's developed to replace the most common AB drive. So that would include the 1305, 160, the PowerFlex 4, 40, 70, and 700. And then the drives that we're replacing with are the G120. So again, that's a general purpose flagship product. In some cases with these smaller drives, we'll replace it with a G120C is an option, and the C is just for compact. So it's just a smaller, more economical version of the G120 modular drive. And we do have resources for this. So again, for replacing just a handful of AB drives, and then this will walk you through how to do all the configuration for the DeviceNet gateway. So again, why would you replace drives on remote I/O or DeviceNet with Synamics? you can migrate your drive right now, which is very cost effective. So of course, you get a lot of benefits out of using a modern network like Ethernet IP or Profinet, modern controllers. But sometimes, you need to plan for that and you need to migrate your drive now. So this is a very cost effective solution. There aren't any changes to the PLC code, so that is going to reduce risk and save time. A lot of these PLCs, like PLC5 and SLC 500, you might not have the correct cables or the software to run to get online with these PLCs. And so not touching the PLC code or having to deal with that legacy software is a big deal. And then finally, the gateways and configuration files are specifically designed to replace discontinued AB VFDs. So this really simplifies the connection and configuration. They're not generic. They are specific for Synamics and common drives on these legacy networks. So, just want to summarize, we have solutions for, Ethernet IP with Logix PLCs, AB remote IO with AB PLC 5, as well as DeviceNet with AB SLC 500 PLCs. And then I have to put a plug in. I was told my friends in factory automation. So I'm part of the motion control group, but factory automation at Siemens covers our HMIs, our PLCs, network switches, NIO, and I'm putting a plug in for them. So we have other products. Siemens has other products that connect on Ethernet IP, including the HMIs, network switches, and IO products. And then our Siemens PLCs can also integrate on Ethernet IP networks. So we have different controller communication functions, and those can be found on our Siemens Industry Online Support. So of course, drives, and I went into a lot of detail here today, but other products as well. And if you would like more information, we have lots of different resources. So we have our Siemens Drives and Motion website where you can find our brochures, latest information on products. We have our Siemens Industry Online Support, which we mentioned earlier. You do need a login to get access, but once you do, you'll have access to application instructions, those AOIs, EDS files, labs, and other documentation. And then just for fun, we have our Siemens How to Drive videos on YouTube. So these are created by our product managers in the US, and they go over some cool drive features, new drive products. But if you're interested in learning more, it's a great resource for you to see on YouTube.
And with that, did you have anything else you want to talk? I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Was there anything else you wanted to cover?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Well, Jackie, thank you for coming back on the Automation Podcast. Really appreciate you covering these products today, and I hope the audience really enjoys this podcast.
Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. And I want to thank Jackie for taking time out of her busy schedule to come on the show and talk to us about how you can use Siemens VFDs on Allen-Bradley networks with Allen-Bradley PLCs. Now, if you did enjoy this episode, please consider giving us a like and a sub. And if you know anybody looking for PLC HMI or SCADA training, please send them over to my website, theautomationschool.com. Now, if you want to follow me or get in touch, you can also do so over at automation.locals.com. With that said, I want to wish you all a very happy, safe, and healthy week. And until next time, my friends, peace.